Hi everyone, and welcome to week 9. This week we're going to talk about interviews. As you remember, your final paper does need to include direct quotations, summaries, or paraphrases from at least 2 interviews with people working in your field. The interviews should focus on the problem or issue that is the main focus for your final paper. We're going to start by looking at this very short Moodle book that's just an introduction to interviews. It gives you some strategies, things that you should do to prepare for an interview and how to schedule an interview, some things that you should do during the interview, and then finally some things that you should do after the interview. The most important of which is to write a written thank you note to your interviewee. It's not an email, it's an actual snail mail note. You can easily find inexpensive boxes of thank you notes at any dollar store, and your note only needs to say thank you for your time and I enjoyed speaking with you. But it's important that you do this. It's generally polite, and it's a good way to establish networking connections. You may need to use this person again down the line for a letter of reference, or maybe even another interview, and you don't want to have upset them or offended them by not thanking them for their time. Remember that they are doing this as a favor to you. So be sure to read that Moodle book through. It's just some tips and tricks. And then the second reading that you have is a link to a Forbes article called 9 Tips for Conducting Great Interviews. And again, just something to keep in mind, some practices to keep in mind as you interview for your paper. So once you've read those 2 things, you're going to complete the interview assignment. Now the interview assignment is a little bit different because you're only going to be providing me with some information. The actual interviews can be conducted at any point prior to the submission of the final paper, but this assignment serves to help you plan ahead and think about your interviews so that they don't get left to the last minute. Remember, somebody that you want to interview may not be available when you want to interview them or at the last minute, so it's really important to plan ahead. Again, you do need to include at least 2 people in your final paper, but for this assignment, you need to find 3 potential people that you could interview. And that's so that if somebody isn't available for you to interview, you have a backup and you're not scrambling at the last minute. So basically, you're going to provide me with some information and some sample questions for your interviews. But the interviews, again, are conducted independently on your own time. But we are also in week 9, so you should be planning ahead and thinking about when you're going to conduct those interviews. You have a sample interview assignment here to show you what yours should look like. There's no template for this, but it should look something like this. You should have the person's name, their credentials, and credentials are their degrees or certificates or whatever makes them a credible source. They may not hold a degree if you have maybe a more technical field or a more hands-on field. They may have work experience or something aside from a degree, but degrees are typically what we think of when we talk about credentials. You need to include their contact information, and you'll notice that the assignment sheet says both a telephone number and an email address at a minimum. You should definitely try to find a street address as well so that you have a place to send that thank you note, but you absolutely need these 2 pieces of information. You should then create 3 potential questions. Follow-up questions are important as well. And then you create 2 different citations. First is the in-text, so this is what I would put at the end of my direct quotations, summaries, or paraphrases. And then the works cited or references entry. This is what goes on your references or works cited page at the end of your assignment. That's pretty much it for the interview. It's fairly easy, but you do want to make sure that you are thinking ahead and using this as sort of a reminder that you do have to conduct at least 2 interviews before the end of the semester. The Dropbox for this assignment is right here. You do have an option to provide more feedback this week if you'd like. It is the same question as before, and it's just that short answer, what's working for you or not working for you. And other than that, the only thing that you should be doing this week is if you have gotten an unacceptable on a Gateway assignment, you should be revising those and getting caught up. Again, next week, we are going to work on source use and fallacies. And after that, we start outlining and then drafting, and it's very, very quick to the end of the semester. So use this as an opportunity to get caught up and also as an opportunity to kind of plan ahead for the next few weeks. As always, if there are any questions, please feel free to email me or stop by office hours. I'd be happy to chat with you. And otherwise, have a wonderful week.